You are watching Shadowen, where the stories are real, and the fear is too. I've got to be honest, reading this one, I had to stop twice just to figure out what the actual hell the person was talking about. It's not just scary, it's logically horrifying. This next entry, titled The 40-Acre Glitch, was submitted by someone calling themselves Surveyor Zero. And dude, I genuinely feel bad for them, because this sounds like the kind of brainworm that never, ever leaves you alone. So I bought this place in 2018. It was in the middle of nowhere, like deep in Missouri, where the humidity is a weapon, and the roads just sorta vanish into gravel. It was cheap, suspiciously cheap. The realtor, a woman named Carol who smelled faintly of mothballs and regret, literally just wanted the paperwork done. 40 acres, the deed said. Old farm, built around 1905. Untouched since the previous owner died in 1968. I didn't care about history. I cared about debt. I was coming off a bad divorce, needed a project, and needed to be someplace where my phone couldn't get signal, honestly. I wanted silence. And I got it. The silence out there was a tangible thing. It felt pressurized. Like if you breathed too loud, something would snap. The first few weeks were just pure sweat and dust. Clearing out the barn, which was full of these weird, rusted implements I didn't recognize. Not normal plows, just these heavy, sharp metal things that looked like they were designed to cut rock, not soil. I found a mason jar full of petrified cigarette butts and teeth. I didn't think much of it. Farms are gross. My major thing, my obsession, became the field.
The 40 acres were split. 10 acres around the house and 30 of dense, fallow cornfield behind the barn, which had gone totally wild, stalks higher than my truck. I planned to bush hog it and turn it into pasture. The thing is, I'm a structural engineer by trade, though I was unemployed at the time. I like straight lines. I like things to add up. I had the original survey map, and the whole property was supposed to be a neat, almost perfect rectangle. 40 acres exactly. I had a terrible headache the whole first week, just throbbing right behind my eyes, the kind you get when you stop drinking caffeine cold turkey, which I hadn't. I kept taking Advil, but nothing touched it. The only thing that made it slightly better was cheap beer, which I was drinking way too much of, like trying to wash the dust out of my throat constantly.
The problem started with the fence line. The original posts were rotted out, obviously, so I was setting new concrete posts. Standard measure, 60 feet between posts. I started at the northwest corner stake, the original one, still there, marked with a brass cap, and I ran my 100-foot tape measure down the north line. The deed said that line was 1,320 feet long, exactly a quarter mile. I hit 1,320 feet and dropped my last post. I looked over at where the original northeast corner stake should have been. It was 50 feet away from where I was standing. 50 feet. I thought, okay, maybe the original surveyors sucked. Maybe the brass cap I thought was the corner wasn't the corner. I pulled out my GPS unit, a pretty high-end one I use for work, and checked the coordinates from the deed. The coordinates put the property line exactly where the deed said it should be. 1,320 feet. But my physical measurement was always short by 50 to 60 feet. I figured, hey, my tape measure must be warped in the heat. It was 105 degrees, literally. I went and bought a brand new, certified steel tape measure from the hardware store, 30 miles away. Cost me like $80. The whole drive back, I was listening to this really annoying 90s country song on repeat, because that's all the old pickup radio would catch. It was driving me nuts. I got back, waited for the sun to go down a little. It was still miserably hot. And I remeasured the north line. I was meticulous. Held the tape straight, used a tension gauge, checked it 3 times. First run, 1,261 feet. Short 59 feet. Second run, 1,262.5 feet. Short 57.5 feet. Third run, 1,260 feet. Short 60 feet. I sat down hard on the damp, cracked earth. This was impossible. This wasn't a matter of error. This was a matter of basic arithmetic failing. A 60-foot discrepancy on a quarter-mile line means that either the deed was fraudulent or something else was going on. The south line, which was supposed to be parallel, measured exactly 1,320 feet. Perfect. I decided the north line was just messed up. Maybe the original owner had cheated the neighbor way back when. Whatever. I finished the south line and moved to the west side, the long north to south boundary that ran alongside the highway. A dirt road, really. That line was supposed to be 1,320 feet as well. I started measuring, dragging the steel tape through the deep weeds. 500, 800, 1,000. I got to 1,320 feet, and the property marker,
An ancient limestone cairn that had been mentioned in the deed description, was 40 feet beyond the 1,320 mark. The property was longer than it should be on one side and shorter on the other. It didn't make a rectangle. It made a messed up kite shape. I spent the next 3 days doing nothing but surveying this place. I ran diagonals. I used trigonometry. I used the GPS again. I did a full topological survey just to try and make the numbers work. The calculated acreage, based on my measurements, kept coming out to 38.4 acres, not 40. This started messing with my head. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw lines crossing and diverging at impossible angles. The property tax assessment was due, so I had to file the paperwork. The county records, which should have mirrored the deed, listed the area as 40.01 acres. I called Carol, the realtor. Carol, listen, I'm measuring the property and the acreage doesn't match the deed. It's short. She coughed this wet, heavy sound. Honey, it's an old farm. Those numbers are estimates. It's close enough. It's 2 acres short. That's tens of thousands of dollars. Well, she said, sounding bored. The previous owner never complained. She hung up pretty quickly. That's when I started obsessing over the number 40. Why was it so stubbornly 40 acres on paper, but physically, measurably, it wasn't? I started marking the corners with brightly colored PVC pipe. Red for the short north line, yellow for the too long west line. I went out one morning, maybe 2 weeks after I first started the survey nightmare. I was still fighting the headache, and I developed this weird chronic itch on my left foot, right on the arch, that nothing would scratch. It was infuriating. I walked out to the north line, the red pipe boundary. I looked across the field towards the east, planning where I'd run the electric fence. I could see the tall, dry corn stalks. I stopped dead. The stalks were close, too close. The cornfield was supposed to start about 200 feet from the barn, but now it looked like it started maybe 120 feet away. The field had moved closer to the buildings. I walked the distance. 125 feet.
Help me.
I vividly remembered walking that space the day before. I had paced out the 200 feet for the fence planning. I was sure I had been 200 feet. I went back to the survey tools, trying to stay calm. The GPS shifted. Satellite error. I took a reading on the northwest corner stake. It gave me the same coordinates. I measured the distance from the barn foundation to the north line. 195 feet. I measured it again. 195 feet. I sat down and drank half a bottle of whiskey. Cheap stuff, just trying to override the logic part of my brain. This was a nightmare. This was literally impossible. Land does not compress and expand overnight like a sponge. But the next day, it was worse. I woke up, looked out the kitchen window, which was filthy, by the way, with this grime that smelled like old lard, and the cornfield was gone from that side. The north side was now just bare, cracked dirt. It looked like it had been freshly plowed, even though I hadn't touched it. The red PVC marker pipe I had put up was now lying on its side, maybe 30 feet further out than where I had placed it. I ran out there, stumbling over the uneven clods. The cornfield, the 30 acres of massive, overgrown stalks, was now entirely shifted to the east side of the property. It was still 30 acres. I measured the overall area, and it was still 38.4 acres. But the shape of the acreage was wrong. The cornfield had moved, taking a chunk of the dirt road with it, and replacing the north section with fresh, dark, bare soil. I stood there, breathing heavy, sweat stinging my eyes. The only noise was that incessant, high-pitched buzz of cicadas and the squeak of the broken windmill I hadn't fixed yet. I felt like I was watching the planet breathe. It wasn't that the whole property was shifting relative to the planet. It felt like the 38.4 acres itself was constantly rearranging its internal volume to try and become the 40 acres it was supposed to be. Like the area was stretching and retracting, but always falling short of the perfect 40. I drove into town and bought a trail camera. I was going to document this. I set up the camera facing the newly barren north field. I aimed it at the spot where the corn had been just 24 hours earlier. That night I was sitting in the filthy kitchen, drinking another beer, trying to figure out if I was having some kind of psychotic break brought on by heatstroke. I was hungry, but I couldn't stomach the microwave burrito I'd bought. Around 2 a.m., I heard it. The sound of tilling. Heavy, rhythmic grinding of machinery. Maybe a diesel engine. It sounded exactly like someone was out in the newly bare field, plowing. I froze. I wasn't scared of a thief. I was scared of the sheer impossibility of the sound. I was the only person within 5 miles. I knew all the neighbors. 2 guys who lived 10 miles down the road, and they only used ancient, quiet tractors. This was loud. Industrial. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept by the door, thinking maybe, just maybe, I'd been robbed and someone was taking advantage of the shifting land to harvest phantom corn. I stepped outside. The night air was thick and smelled overwhelmingly of turned earth, ozone, and wet feed. The sound was right there. Massive. Roaring. It should have been blindingly obvious what it was. I looked out into the field. It was pitch black, but I could hear the engine. I strained my eyes. I could make out the shape of the terrain, and there was nothing there. No headlights, no machine, just the sound, louder than my truck engine, vibrating the very dirt under my boots. And then, just as suddenly, the sound reversed. It wasn't winding down. It literally played backward, The roaring engine sound ran in reverse, like a corrupted audio file. Then silence. Then it repeated the forward sound. Then reverse. Forward. Reverse. It lasted maybe 20 seconds. When it finally stopped, the air felt cold, even though the temperature hadn't dropped below 80. I ran back inside and locked the door, leaning against the peeling, vomit-colored drywall, heart hammering. I didn't sleep. At dawn, I went out and checked the trail camera. I pulled the SD card and plugged it into my laptop. The pictures were time-stamped perfectly. The whole night was recorded. I skipped to 2 a.m. The camera faced the empty field. The pictures showed nothing. No movement, no light, nothing. Except, look closely at the timestamps. At 2:03 a.m., picture 1, empty field. At 2:03 a.m., picture 2, empty field. At 2:03 a.m., picture 3, empty field. Wait. The internal clock on the camera only records 1-second intervals, but these were all stamped 2:03 a.m. 3 pictures, milliseconds apart. I zoomed in on the bare dirt in the foreground of the picture taken at 2:03 a.m. The dirt was disturbed in the first picture. Neat rows, slightly tilled. In the second picture, taken at the exact same digital time, the dirt was flat and undisturbed, exactly as it had been when I set the camera up. In the third picture, still 2:03 a.m., the rows of tilled dirt were back, but the direction of the rows was changed. They were running north-south, not east-west like in the first image. The land was glitching, repeating the same millisecond of time, trying 3 different configurations before settling on the flat, boring dirt for the rest of the night. It was trying to decide what shape to be. The obsession went from measurement to detection. I started measuring the land every hour. I set up stakes everywhere. I found the most horrifying anomaly about a week later. I was trying to reconcile the field movement with the deed description. The deed mentioned a specific corner marker, the old well cap where the original 40 acres meets the creek line. I knew the creek line. It ran a good 200 feet past the short north boundary. I went looking for the well cap. I eventually found it, half buried in the tall grass where the cornfield was now relocated. It was a concrete slab, cracked, with an iron ring. I measured the distance from the well cap to my back porch, 450 feet. I measured it again an hour later, 450 feet. I felt safe using the well cap as a fixed point, something that wasn't moving. I went into the barn to fix the squeaky door hinge. Another piece of irritating narrative noise, I guess. It was really bothering me. The hinge was jammed up with rust and spider webs. I was leaning over, focused on driving out the pin, when I heard the distinct thump of the back porch screen door closing. I knew that sound. It was mine. I stood up, holding the rusty hammer. I hadn't gone back inside. I walked out of the barn, slowly. The well cap was gone. Not moved. Gone. Where the concrete slab had been, there was now just raw, untouched pasture. The grass wasn't even crushed. It was like someone had taken a massive circular cookie cutter and removed the feature, replacing it with the same boring grass found everywhere else on the property. I walked over to the spot. I measured the distance from the porch again. It was still 450 feet to that exact spot. I spent maybe 15 minutes frantically kicking at the dirt, thinking the well cap had been buried or stolen. Then I looked up, across the property line, into the woods that bordered the south boundary. And there it was. The cracked concrete well cap, exactly the same, sitting 100 yards away, half hidden by a clump of sumac trees. It had moved 300 feet south, in a straight line. I rushed over, stumbling, pushing aside thorny branches. The grass around it here was also undisturbed. I measured the distance from the porch to this new location. It was 450 feet. I checked the old spot again. 450 feet. The spatial relationship hadn't changed, but the actual physical location of the object had jumped 300 feet south. The only way for both points to be 450 feet from the porch was if the porch, the barn, the house, the whole core 10 acres was also moving, shifting on the surface of the earth to maintain a perfect distance from a reference point that also moved. I was standing on a floating raft of acreage that was trying to achieve a geometry that was impossible. It was fighting gravity, inertia, and basic Euclidean space, all to try and equal 40 acres on a piece of paper. I started running. I didn't grab the truck keys, I just bolted down the dirt road, breathing raw dust. I had to get off the property. As I ran past the south line, the one that was exactly 1,320 feet, I glanced back at the mess I called home, and that's when I saw him. A man. Elderly. Wearing faded blue overalls and a wide-brimmed straw hat. He was standing exactly where the well cap had been just moments ago, holding a long wooden surveyor's rod, staring intently at the ground. He looked absolutely exhausted. His face was gray, lined deeper than normal age, and he had that same 1,000-yard stare I saw in the mirror. He was measuring the land, obsessively. I recognized him immediately from the single dusty photograph I found in the barn when I moved in. The previous owner. The man who died in 1968. He looked up. His eyes, though shadowed by the hat, looked right at me. He looked terrified, and yet completely numb, like he'd been performing this ritual for decades. And here's the thing that broke my brain completely, dude. He wasn't standing on my property. When I looked at him, I didn't see the field. I saw the land as it had been 2 weeks ago. The corn stalks were short, maybe knee-high, not the towering, dense stalks I had been dealing with. The sky above him was a dull, smoky yellow, a color I hadn't seen since a wildfire 4 states over. He wasn't standing in my reality. He was standing in a previous configuration of the acreage. He was still stuck on the problem of the shifting boundaries. The sound of the roaring tractor, the one that played backward, came again, very faintly, from the spot where the man was standing. Backward, forward, backward. Then, everything went quiet. The man was gone. The corn stalks snapped back to the massive, dry towers I knew. The air thickened back up with heat. The itch on my foot flared up painfully. I didn't stop running until I hit the pavement road 10 miles away, where a semi-truck almost hit me. I haven't been back. I still pay the property taxes on the place. I can't let it go because I keep thinking about the measurements. I keep thinking, maybe if I just bought a better GPS unit, a better transit level, I could prove that it's 40 acres, that the earth is solid, that my mind isn't soup. But I know I can't. The land is still out there, breathing, failing to achieve perfect 40. And every time I look at a map now, I get dizzy, because I know that geometry is just a polite suggestion. That is unsettling.
Come play with me.
Deeply, profoundly unsettling. Thank you for sharing that terrifying experience of spatial dysphoria, Surveyor Zero. If you enjoyed this journey into geometric horror, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss the next entry here on Shadowen.